Steel Curtain Network.
Picket the Pickens! Picket the Pickens! Picket the Pickens!
What's up, Pittsburgh Steelers fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Steelers Preview. I'm one of the three hosts, Jeff Hartman. Joining me as always, Dave Schofield, and Brian Davis. Dave, what's up?
Not too much, Jeff. Just excited to think that not only do we get a game for the Steelers this Sunday, that a week from now we'll be watching a Steelers game as well.
Yeah, that is crazy. And I just realized that. I knew it was Thursday night next week. Didn't even think about it. But anyways, Brian Davis, welcome to the show.
I am so glad to be here, fellas, and I will not be here next week with you because last minute I decided that I'm going to the game next week.
There you
Say
go.
hi to Big Bro and Kyle. They'll be there
I'll
too.
hang out with them if they want to be seen with me.
The Blonde Bomber. It will be at Acrisure Stadium next week. Make sure you wear your Terry Bradshaw jersey. People probably wouldn't be able to tell you apart. All right. So let's get right down to it. This week is a big week, week 8. The matchup versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. Just to tease a couple podcasts that are not on YouTube, Facebook, or anywhere else where we live stream. If you want the numbers to the game, make sure you check out Dave Schofield's Stat Geek podcast, which ran Thursday morning. Great statistical matchup. Dave, I mean, I'm going to ask you first. These teams are more statistically alike than they aren't, am I right?
Yeah, I mean, they're much more lined up than they were with the Rams.
Especially the defense. That's what I was surprised.
Yeah. The Jacksonville Jaguars are the next to last passing defense in the NFL because I think they've been last over the last several weeks, but yet they've still managed to win 4 games in a row.
Right.
But the Jaguars, they kind of do it like the Steelers do. They rely on takeaways.
Yeah. Now, coming up on my podcast tomorrow, Friday, Let's Ride, I will have John Shipley on. He covers the Jaguars for Fans First Sports Network. He's also a Sports Illustrated writer. He's in the locker room. And he provided some really good insight about this team as well. Brian, I want to get your gut. So Dave did the statistical analysis. What is your gut reaction when you think about this upcoming game with the Jaguars?
You know what? The Jacksonville Jaguars, to me, are an enigma. And the reason I say that is because, they come out weird at the beginning. Then they go to England and get it all figured out. They're home away from home, which a lot of people said that they are kind of England's team. And ever since they went over there, they have been a much different football team. And they're doing it without, he's there, but without great services from Calvin Ridley. So if he comes alive, this is even a much better team. Christian Kirk is playing very well for this team as well. I think this is a great matchup, but I definitely want to see if Deontay Johnson is in this game.
That's a great point. So since you bring up injuries and the injury aspect of things, why don't we just get right into this? Why don't we go into the injury report? Because honestly, we have Wednesday and Thursday to go off of. Thursday, I don't even know what to make of this, some of this stuff. Dave, why don't you go ahead and read off the Steelers injury report as of Thursday?
Okay, as of Thursday, Steelers injury report. They had 4 names added on Thursday. Now, one of them was for a very good reason. So let's talk about that first. Although they didn't get his number right on there. Come on, people. Is that Captain Cameron Hayward is open. The window is open. He was back at practice. He was in a limited fashion. I don't think this was to play this week. I think it was to give him a chance to play next week with a short week. Maybe. Not definitely. But there was no way you were going to bring him back next week if all he had was next week's practices. So this at least gives him that chance. Either way, I mean, you look further down the road, they've got 2 AFC North road games in the middle of November. He will either be back for those or on IR for the rest of the year. So that's actually very encouraging that he should be back for those.
Do we agree, though, before you go any further, do we agree Green Bay is probably the game that everyone's pointing to on the calendar and says that's probably the most likely chance that he would come back, maybe the earliest?
Yeah, I would say probably 70% that game, 25% against the Titans, and 5% this weekend.
Okay. There you go.
And that's without even really thinking about how I'm going to break it down otherwise.
All right.
So yeah,
continue
that's
with the board, Phil.
Got to get to the rest of these. Now to the concerning ones. Joey Porter Jr. was limited with a calf. It sounds like it was something he did in practice. It was wrapped up, but he did tell Joe Rutter, who put that out on Twitter, I had in the article, that it should just be precautionary. We'll see. Larry Ogunjobi shows up back. He's a very familiar face in the injury report, but he had been off for 2 weeks, back on with a whole different injury, shoulder injury, didn't practice. And the one that I am the most concerned about, because it's the hamstring again, Deontay Johnson did not practice on Thursday. Now, was this a maintenance extra precautionary thing? Could be. Is this is this going to be something that lingers for a while? My goodness, I hope not. But to finish out the rest of the report of the people that were there, McFarland's still there, is full. Cole Holcomb has been full the last two days, so there was nothing with his ankle that's held him out. Levi Wallace was limited today. He didn't practice yesterday with a foot. And Nate Herbig came back from an illness to be full. And the two guys that were not injury-related, they didn't even have their names anymore.
So real quick, before I throw it to Brian and get his thoughts on this, let's keep in mind what we've learned about the Steelers the last 2 weeks as it pertains to especially the Thursday injury report. Okay, go back to Darnell Washington. I brought this up last week. He had that knee. Remember, he popped up and everyone was like, oh my gosh, Darnell Washington, he's going to play. He's going to have a designation. He had nothing. Go back to last week. TJ Watt, Thursday, pops up with a heel injury. Everyone's freaking out. Oh my gosh, is TJ going to play? He ends up playing, no designation. My hope is that a lot of these players that were listed today on Thursday are going to follow that same line of thinking. I don't blame the Steelers for bringing up any potential injury. You hear about some of the, we'll call it the scuttlebutt going on in Atlanta with Bijan Robinson not playing, dealing with an illness, and was never on the injury report last week. A lot of people gamble on these games. The NFL does not want the injury reports to not be out and be accurate. So I'm not too concerned. I would rather see Deontay Johnson as a DNP and hope that it was just kind of like, hey, they gave him a day. I think he normally speaks to media on Friday, so I'm sure we'll hear something from him about, yeah, I'm going to play or something like that. But Brian, let's throw it to you. What do you think about the injury report?
Yeah, you know what? Sometimes it's being cautious. I like that. I mean, I have no problem. Remember, and this is the Larry Ogunjobi factor, and Larry Ogunjobi is on that list, and he was on. I mean, it might as well be, after last year, might as well be called the Larry O honorary list, because he's always on it. And I know he hasn't been there every week this year, but it seems like it. And I don't think it's anything like that he doesn't want to practice. It's just like sometimes you're taking precautions. And remember this, one of my favorite Mike Tomlin acts of Mike Tomlin over the years was Troy Polamalu. What was the official designation? Old age or something, or advanced age? I forget. It was something clever. It was funny. But now maybe they're being cautious, but maybe Deontay aggravated that. I mean, it's a groin injury, right?
Hamstring.
Well, yeah. Hamstring, groin, they both are possible to deal with. Groin's just funnier to say. But, I'll say this. Hopefully they're being it's a cautionary tale. We just know that what Deontay Johnson, we've been pounding the table for Deontay Johnson the last 2 or 3 weeks, saying that he is going to make a difference. And you can't say that he didn't make a difference in that game. I don't think I'd want to know what would have happened if we changed the space-time continuum and there was no Deontay Johnson in that game. So I think he's very important to this team going forward. So with the names that were on last week, Jeff said TJ Watt, on there's some to scare you, but you got to do it because fines have been levied in the past. We've seen, Belichick used to mess with this list all the time.
Well, Mike Tomlin himself, if you remember back in, 2015 or 2014, going into the postseason when Le'Veon Bell had the groin injury, and he said to the media, this has been lingering all season, but he was never on an injury report. Like they were in hot water then from the NFL. Right. Yeah. So the Steelers have dealt with this before. So I wouldn't be shocked if Tomlin, Burt Lawton, Omar Khan, whoever, Art Rooney II, go all the way to the top, say like, look, if the guy misses practice, we are putting them on the injury report, and that's fine. And so we'll learn more as we go. Dave, you listed everyone off. Give you a chance to give your thoughts if there's any more.
I don't want to stress myself out because there are some important ones on there. So I'm just going to say I'm gonna block it out of my mind and wait for Friday.
Yeah, let's hope that Deontay Johnson didn't re-injure the hamstring and is going the way of Pat Freiermuth back to injury. Would that end his season, by the way, if he goes back on IR?
No, you can come back twice.
Okay, so you do.
I think you can come back. I guess you could
right.
come back more than that since it's a 16.
That's true. That's true.
Or 17 game. But yeah,
fingers crossed.
You can do it more than once.
Wood. Fingers crossed. Knocked on wood. Let's hope that's not the case. This is going to be. It's kind of getting away from this week's game, but I do have to ask you guys this question. Steelers Jaguars is a really unique matchup. Old AFC Central matchup. There are some really strange games that have happened in this. I guess, would you call it a rivalry? I really don't consider it one, even though they are former division foes. But boy, they've had some tough games against one another. What do you think of when you think of Steelers versus Jaguars? Brian, I'm going to start with you.
Well, I tell you what, I think of action. I think I definitely consider it a rivalry, and here's why. Because when this team first came about in 1995, the AFC Central was considered the Rust Belt division. And they called it that. And one of the things that the owner of the Jaguars, and I cannot remember who it was at the time, what his name was, and I think he came out and said, he pointed the finger at the Steelers and said, this is who we need to go after. Because remember, the Steelers were the division winners the year before. They were in the AFC title game. He considered them the team to beat. And here's this expansion team, coming in and said, hey, we want a rivalry with Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh fans were like, ha, yeah, you want a rivalry with Pittsburgh. Very first game, boom, they beat the Steelers. And that was the year that the Steelers went to the Super Bowl. But it was on that way to that 3-4 start before Super Bowl 30, before they finally turned it around. But it's really interesting. They've always given them tough games. When you think of the game where Jerome Bettis almost died because of an asthma attack, it was against Jacksonville. When you think of, everybody talks about Mike Tomlin trying to trip Jacoby Jones in Baltimore. There was a Monday night game. That's the very same game in week 3 of, I believe, 97, where Bill Cowher looked like he wanted to punch a guy. He went, I mean, you can't see it, but he wound up and it looked like he was going to punch. I believe it was a return, and they lost that game. It was an interception return. It's been crazy. I went in 1997. It's one of my greatest experiences because it was an all-time game, and the Steelers won on a walk-off. And they went to the AFC Championship game that year, but they almost didn't make the playoffs because their chief rival was Jacksonville. Jacksonville owns a little bit of an advantage in this, but we all know we have those wounds from the 2017 season as well, the John Oates game, and we're still upset about that, and we'll never forget it. So I got kind of think it is a rivalry, but the strangest things happen in these games. And remember the game also, Steelers won the Super Bowl in 2005, but that was the week after Ben Roethlisberger got hurt and Tommy Maddox came in, and I believe he threw 2 interceptions in that game. And they dominated Jacksonville in that game. So it's always crazy.
A lot of weird games. Dave, what about you? What do you think of when you think of Steelers Jags?
Well, I was at both of those games in 2017 season. Both. I was there, the regular season one and the playoff one. So I just have that feeling because of how both of those go. That's just me. But this is a different team. They didn't have Trevor Lawrence, who was limited in practice on Thursday. They didn't have, I don't know if they did, or they didn't have offensive linemen. I don't know if they had him or not. Offensive lineman Walker Little and Brandon Sheriff, who were both limited on Thursday. Or wide receivers Zay Jones that didn't practice on Thursday. and cornerback Tyson Campbell and safety Andre Sisco, who were both limited on Thursday. See there, I worked it in somehow.
Way to go, Dave. Thank you very much for picking me up. I totally whiffed on that. Thank you.
But yeah, it just seems like there is something different with Jacksonville. And to me, it's more even specifically in Pittsburgh.
I can still see Rashid Mathis picking off Ben Roethlisberger multiple times and
he
running
was so
for
good.
a touchdown.
Oh, we forgot about the playoff game too.
Which one?
The other
Tomlin's first playoff game.
Yeah.
The
That
who?
was a barn burner.
Yeah, no,
Wasn't
7.
With Garrard as quarterback?
Yeah.
But wasn't
That
that
game was
Mathis that picked
crazy.
off Roethlisberger?
In that game too.
Yeah, he picked him off more than once. I think
And
he had.
Mm-hmm.
He walked off against Maddox in that game I was talking about in 2005.
Yep. There's some really weird games. I go back to a game. This was probably maybe one of the most impressive things I ever saw Ben Roethlisberger do. I want to say it was either Sunday night or Monday night, definitely a primetime game in Jacksonville. And I wish I could tell you the year, early 2000s. Roethlisberger is at quarterback.
2004.
Okay, thank you. He's getting pulled down. I mean, the Steelers need to convert. Like, they convert this first down, they win the game, they can ice out the clock. And he's getting pulled down from his jersey, and he somehow, some way throws a pass that is right on the money to Hines Ward, completes it. They get the first down necessary, and they get the win. It was just remarkable. Think back to the last time they played in Jacksonville. Was Ben Roethlisberger scored on that busted play. Remember, they were going to do that flip underneath, I think to Vance McDonald maybe. He keeps it. He rolls around to the right, dives. Everyone wonders, does he get in? Kind of very reminiscent to Super Bowl 40. And he does. And they end up walking it off there as well. Some really, really strange games have happened between the Jaguars and the Steelers. And so I'm excited for this one. But does Trevor Lawrence strike fear in you all as a fan? Like, let's give you an example. You played Patrick Mahomes, you played Tom Brady back in the day, Peyton Manning. You're like, oh gosh, these guys. Drew Brees is another one. It's going to be a long day. Is Trevor Lawrence that type of quarterback for you, Dave?
I thought he potentially could be. I said going into the season, I thought he was one of the best quarterbacks that we're going to face this year. It hasn't. I don't know that he's playing like he was last season, but you know how he stepped up last year compared to his first year. So the progression isn't necessarily really taking off, but he potentially could be. He just isn't the guy that is constantly doing it all the time right now.
Bad. What about you?
When the rubber hits the road, Trevor Lawrence is going to be very good. So the minute that we on this show and anybody else says, oh, he's not an elite quarterback, he's going to thread you. He's going to kill you. So I'm going to say, yes, he strikes fear in me because he is the best quarterback that we've ever seen in Jacksonville. And that includes Mark Brunell.
Talking about my interview with John Shipley, it'll air tomorrow with Let's Ride. He talked about how Trevor Lawrence plays what he calls hero ball a lot. The play's never over. He uses his athleticism and his legs. Those type of quarterbacks always seem to give the Steelers fits if they're not named Lamar Jackson. So with Trevor Lawrence, he's a different beast. I mean, when you think about, they've given up a lot of pressures. I can't say he's been sacked a ton. Has he, Dave? If you look at the sack numbers.
Oh, I'm trying to remember it, but I was looking at everything else. I got the number sitting right here. He's been sacked. Assuming he was the quarterback the whole time. Did he have to sit out at all in any games? I'm not sure. They've given up the same number of sacks as the Steelers, but in one additional game.
Got it. Okay. So yeah, I mean, the offensive line's a little banged up. Trevor Lawrence is a little banged up. He has that knee injury. They are coming off 10 days rest. So they're going to be prepared. They played Thursday night. What's up, Dave?
I was going to say, this wasn't going to be my regular trivia, but I think it's appropriate to ask now. What's the Steelers' record, regular season and postseason against the Jaguars? They've played them 27 times.
I think it's 13-14.
It is. It's 13-14.
Oh, so
they have a chance to even it up this week.
They can even it up.
Yeah. And it's not like the Jaguars are some juggernaut team every year. I mean, how many times have they been really far down there in the NFL? So you wouldn't think a team like that would always, that's, how do I say it? Had more losing seasons than winning seasons. Would you say that's a fair assessment? Yes, I haven't looked at them specifically, but yet they have a winning record against the Steelers.
Gosh, I'll never forget Week 5 in 2017, Dave, you said you were at that game. Ben Roethlisberger throws 5 interceptions, and that was
maybe I just don't have it anymore.
Yeah, he said maybe I should just retire. And everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, Roethlisberger's going to retire." I'm like, "That's not what he said. What are we talking about?"
Wasn't there a cowboy comment in there too?
It's not probably. I think there was. Now that I think about it, I think you're right, Brian. I think there was a gunslinger. Maybe was the term. Ben likes to call himself a gunslinger. So okay, all right. I'll tell you what. We're going to take a quick break. We're going on the Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, watching us live. We're not going anywhere, but on the audio side, we're going to take a quick break, hear a word from our sponsors. We come back. We're going to have our predictions, over, under, and some trivia. Stay tuned. Be right back. All right, Steeler fans, welcome back to the second half of the Steelers preview, where we're talking all about Steelers Jaguars Week 8. This game is going to be a lot of fun. Let's talk some over, under. It's the most fun time of the show, as some would say. Maybe that's just me. Anyways, Dave, looking at last week's, yikes,
It was not good.
No, it wasn't.
I lost my totals. I don't have my other notebook.
Good.
I know I was
Let's
up.
Start over.
No, we're not starting over. But yes. No, you guys had a chance to make up some ground on me. I only got one right.
I probably didn't have more than that.
You had 2, and so did Brian.
Oh,
well, because and the one that we got right, we all picked. That was Picket yards. We were under.
What do we have? The under of 255.5?
Yeah.
Okay. So Kenny Pickett.
That's the only one I got right.
He only had one. We had KPA touchdowns, 1.5. That was
and the one time I just disagreed with Brian because I said I was tired of agreeing with him so much. Of course, I lost, and he got
Steelers.
That one
Steelers takeaways 1.5. They had 1. The Rams sacks.
And you took the under.
They had 2 sacks, right? And I said 1.5. And then Steelers today, they only had 2 sacks.
They only had 2 sacks, so we all 3 of us took the over.
All right.
Yep.
So we don't know the totals yet. That's fine.
No, well, I'll have it for the. I'm pretty sure it was like 16, 12, and 11, or that might have been the week before.
Something like that.
But it was something. No, it would have been the week before. It was the bye week. So I'm pretty sure it's 17, 14, and 13 is my guess right off the top of my head. Right, but I'll confirm that for next time.
Okay, we have 5 fresh ones here for you. Over under game. If you're first time listening or watching, it's simple. I state the line, and we have to pick over or under. And sometimes we get these people that comment and say, how can a guy throw a half of a touchdown? Okay, in gambling terms, it's called the hook, so that you can't have a push or a tie. So you're forced to get over or under. That's why it says 1.5 touchdowns. That's why there's the half. Just to explain that for those people that might not understand it. Okay, let's start this off where we always do. Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett passing touchdowns. Specific to passing touchdowns, the line is at 1.5. Brian, what you got?
I'm going over. I think he's getting 2 this week. It happened this year, so let's go 2.
All right, Dave, what do you think?
I'm gonna go. Why did I write under for my name? My name is Dave. Sorry. I'm gonna go under just because I think. You know what? No, I'm changing my mind. I'm going over. The Jags are really good against the run, very bad against the pass. So if I think the Steelers are going to go, not that they can't run in on them, to finish it off, I'm going to assume that they're going to get them through the air. So I'll go over as well.
I was going to go over before Dave even, or should I call him under, before he even picked. So I'm going to go over. I think 2 is a good number. Maybe 3. First time in his career, he gets 3.
I should change my back to the under. It's probably. I don't know. I'm talking myself into it.
Let's go with Najee Jerome Harris, his rushing yards. I've got it. This some people might think it's a little high. I think they're going to give it to him a lot. 65.5 rushing yards. Brian?
My gosh, what's happening to me? I'm going to say over. Barely, but over.
Okay. What about you, Dave?
Jags got a really good run defense. I'm going under. I think that I'm even thinking the Steelers could go over 100 rushing yards, but I think it's going to be split more between the 2 backs.
When I see that last week they were almost even split, Jaylen Warren, Najee Harris, in terms of snaps, I think he's going to be under in this game because of that. So unless they change their philosophy and start to think like he's going to be the back, I'm going to go slightly under. I think he's going to be around 60, but I think he's going to have a good performance. I hope that Jaylen Warren contributes as well. I'm going to go under. Let's go with George Pickens receiving yards. I've got that number, and some might say it's a little low, but you just don't know when Deontay Johnson's going to get all of his stuff together if he plays even. 87.5 is the over-under for George Pickens. Brian, what do you have?
Wow. I mean, George has gone over 103 times this year, right?
I think so.
And
at least twice.
He has superstar potential. You know what? Gosh, seriously? Let's say yes. Let's say he goes over.
Okay. Yeah, I took the over too. I don't know that it hit 100, but I think he could get in the 90s.
I think he goes over based on the fact that, their weakness is the passing game. So as long as the Steelers can hold up and pass protection, I think they will have some.
Unless his bulletin board material comes back to haunt.
Oh, you talking about him saying that they have a hope defense?
You know what? The Steelers kind of do too.
Yeah, well, a lot of teams do.
Teams with a good pass rush, that's what you do. You hope you get home in time, that the defense hope they hold up long enough for them to do what they do up front.
That is one of those where if you watch and listen to him say those comments, it is as a giant nothing burger. But if you read
as Trevor Lawrence's was.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, the little towels or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, I watched him like, I don't think it's that bad. Like he just said the little yellow towels. Who cares? Yeah. All right, let's go to the next one. Deontay Johnson targets. I wanted to look up last week and I forgot, but I'm going to go 6.5. 6.5 targets for Deontay Johnson. Brian?
I'm going to go over. That's just if he plays. If he doesn't play,
if he doesn't play, this is nullified.
All right,
this
good.
is nullified. Good. The whole bet is off. So it's just like
good.
If you're gambling on a game and somehow
we will cancel the bet before the game starts.
Very good.
After he doesn't play.
Yeah.
So assuming that he plays, Brian, what is yours?
Absolutely over. My gosh, I'm over king right now.
Yeah,
I'm the king of wishful thinking, Dave. I'm go west.
Yeah,
you're hammering the over. You're in the over.
I'm hammering the over on this one too. If he plays, I think he'll get. 7 targets. I think he can reach that. I think it'll be more around 8 or 9.
I'm going to go over as well. Did anyone know what he had last week by chance? Targets?
I don't remember, but I can find it within the next 30 seconds.
7 or 8.
Yeah, it was. So, yeah, I'm trying to think. I don't know. Brian Brown, this is not a purple shirt. It's maroon. Anyways, some might call it slightly.
I'd like to see you with a unibrow,
though.
He had 6 last week.
Oh, okay. All right, let's go with. I should have done that. Dang it. Okay, Pittsburgh defensive sacks.
You can do 6 if you want to. We did it one week. So
yeah, come on, Jeff.
Okay, I'll write it down. Hold on, we'll do the next. Pittsburgh defensive sacks. I only have it at 2.5. Now, there's something about. Go ahead and make your picks, but I feel like this is easy money. Brian, what do you think?
I'm going to go ahead and say under.
Okay.
Well, I'll go opposite of Brian. I'm going to go over because TJ Watt got shut out last week, so I have a feeling he's going to get it at least to himself.
I'm going to go over again on my show. Jeremy Betts. I don't know if this is accurate or not. Dave, maybe you saw this statistic somewhere. Any game in TJ Watt's career where he was shut out, or I don't know if it's this season or career, he gets at least 2 sacks the next game or something like that. It's insane.
So there's one time he was shut out back to back, but I saw that. I saw that from Jeremy Betts on Twitter.
He could be lying. He could be lying to all of us.
But yeah.
All right, so
we
let's
both
do
saw
the 6th.
But it's the same source. Yeah.
Let's do the 6th. Here we go. Deontay Johnson touchdowns, 0.5. Brian, over under.
It's happening this week. He's got it over. He's got it. It's the streak is ending. DJ,
I'm going with it too
for 6.
I agree. I'll take the over on that one as well.
Under? No, he doesn't get it.
Yep. Well, Jeff, you just made up a point on both of us. So
what's that?
You just made up a point on both of us.
I saw someone said in the live chat, like, Deontay's going to get a touchdown. I was like, dang it, I should have said Deontay Johnson touchdowns at 0.5 until he actually scores. I did that a bunch last season, but I don't know. Okay, there's the over-under game. We'll keep you up to speed with all of that good stuff. Let's talk about the game coming up and our predictions. The line that I have, it might have moved since this, but the line that I have is the Steelers are getting 2.5 points at home, and the total is 42 points. The sports books do not see this being a high-scoring affair. So with that being said, Brian, why don't you go ahead and give us your score prediction and how you think it's going to go?
Well, I'm going to say right away, 27-26 is going to be the final score. So let's go ahead and give me the over here.
What was the score?
27-26.
Oof,
so that would be 53.
Steelers winning?
It's going to be I'm going to discuss that right now, Jeff.
Geez.
So I've got the build up. Now, I'm one of those people that I usually think I'm pretty reasonable until somebody rankles me, and you can ask my family that I just do things out of spite. So do I believe that the Steelers could win this game? Absolutely. I really think they can. This is a good matchup. This is the kind of game that they're going to win. But I made a promise last week, and I don't break my promises because somebody really ticked me off by saying Jeff is the only good Steeler fan on this show because he picked the Steelers.
It's about time someone recognized that.
Yeah, and you're the only true Steeler fan.
Where most reasonable people realize that Jeff is the only fool because he picks them every
he picks them every week.
Look, when they win, I look like a damn genius.
So you're good, and you're right about half the time.
I'm 4-2 this year.
If you're going to Vegas and you're going to bet your house on what Brian Anthony Davis has to say, then man, I'm sorry, because I do this for fun. I do this for superstition a lot. I love superstition. I know that when I bet against the Steelers, that they win. They do better off winning. I know that in my FanDuel last week, I took both Cooper Kupp and Matt Stafford, and they killed me. And I did that because there's this part in my brain thinking that I can control this game. I am that narcissistic. I am that kind of guy delusional that thinks that I can control the outcome of this game. I'm the same man that after losing 6 games in a row back in glory years of the Steelers in the 2000s, had a ceremony to burn his pants and they started winning again. So I am that guy that thinks that I and my clothes and my opinions could change the fortune of the Steelers. So you know what? I think the Steelers can win this game, but there's one thing that you can't question about me. And you can question a lot of things. You could question my taste in hair. You could definitely do that. You can question a lot of my regular decision making. But you will never, if you question the fact that I am not a diehard Steeler fan because of opinion I make on the show, then you don't know me. So Jaguars 27, Steelers 26, and I'm going to probably do it all year now.
There you go. Let's go to another non-Steeler fan, Dave Schofield. What's your prediction for the game?
Okay, yeah. So yeah, that's really interesting. I would just say this: if all three of us pick the Steelers every game, every week, you might as well just turn this off. This section of the show off every time. I don't think that's what you're here for. I'm really torn about this one. I've been back and forth because so many things I could say, oh, well, this is why the Jaguars, blah, blah, blah. Oh, this is why the Steelers. This is why, all those various things. And when it really comes down to it, this prediction, I'm going to do the anti-Mike Tomlin. I'm going to do the anti-Mike Tomlin, which is, hey, he wasn't worried about, how they were already going to be getting ready for the next week on Thursday night, going into a short week. It's, hey, one game at a time. That's how it goes. I'm not doing that. If you look at the Steelers' schedule, now they had the bye week. They won one going into their bye week, and they won one coming out. They now have 3 home games. That's going to finish up the second quarter of their season, if you say the first 5 games of the first quarter, because it was before the bye. Are the Steelers going to go 4-0 in that quarter? I would say with this team and the way they play, chances are one of them's going to get away from them. And if you were going to look at all these games, which one would be that one? I think it's going to be the Jacksonville game. Do I believe that the Steelers are going to win 7 games in a row or so? I wouldn't bet my house on that. I wouldn't parlay that one. I'll tell you that for sure. But they could still possibly do it. If the Pittsburgh Steelers find a way to win this game, this is going to be lookout NFL. because if this team goes to 5-2 and then has the next 2 games that they have, which I don't want to get ahead too much, but my goodness, if they win this one, they should be favored in the next couple of weeks before they're back to AFC North football. When anything can happen, and the Steelers have come through in the right way on those lately. So this is where, if you look at the season, you're like, well, you have one game in there that might have been the blip. I'm calling this one the blip. I couldn't decide one way or the other, but there was 2 factors that pushed me one way, and that is, one, the Jaguars coming off of the mini bye, which I think does not look as well for the Steelers, and 2, someone think that you have to pick the Steelers every week to be a fan, which is just moronic. So that's why I'm going with a very similar score to Brian. I'm going 27-23 Jaguars, so I don't have them covering. My thing is just having a close game in this one. That the Steelers have won their close games and lost their blowouts. I think this is one of those where it's a close one that they just can't get it done. It might even be that they're down by a bunch and they just can't get back far enough. Who knows how it's going to play out? But man, oh man, if they can find a way to win this game, this is going to be really big rolling into November. If the Steelers are 5-2, looking at what their schedule is.
Yeah. So as the self-elected Steeler fan of the group, I will go ahead and predict that.
I already have it written in. I just need to know if it's over or under.
The Steelers are going to win. That's what my prediction is. I'm sick of trying to explain this team, because you can't explain this team. You can sit here and put yourself in a mental pretzel over it. I saw enough at the end of the game with the offense. I'm hoping that continues. I think the defense will be strong. They're at home. I think they win. Final score, Steelers 23, the Jacksonville Jaguars 20. That's what I have. So 23.
So you just have the Jags with one less touchdown than what I have. Other than that, we have the same score.
Pretty much, yeah. And I have the Steelers having to come back in the 4th quarter to win it. There you go.
So that's an over, right?
By 1.
So for those of you out there paying attention, to the word of the day here on the Steelers preview is over, because we took the over on almost everything throughout this.
It's true. Yeah, so shocker. Jeff picks the Steelers to win. Let's hope that pans out for him. Let's do some trivia here. Brian, do you have some?
Yeah, I have. This is one of my favorite all-time trivias. So I know Dave could have looked and he could have tried, but this might be a tough one. Now, the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Jacksonville Jaguars, they have shared players since the very beginning, because the Jacksonville Jaguars had that expansion draft in 1995 to get started, and they had a few Steelers players. But both the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Jacksonville Jaguars boast having a father and son on both of their rosters at one time. And now keep in mind, if you're talking
At the same time, right?
Not at the same time, no.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
No, but if you keep in mind, 1995 was probably around when the father was playing. So one of them was fairly recent. The son was fairly recent. Who is the father and son duo? They have the same initials, by the way. It's not a junior situation. It's not the same
So
person.
both father and son played for Steelers and Jaguars.
Yes.
So the father played for both teams, the son played for both teams.
The father and son played for both Pittsburgh and Jacksonville.
Okay. So I'm just trying to think of players, father and sons that both played for Pittsburgh.
Well, I'm trying to think of players that played for both, like Cornell Lake did.
Yep.
Did Jason Gilden go down to Jacksonville?
Jason Gilden, yes. He went to Jacksonville right after his stint with Pittsburgh.
Leon Searcy. But these aren't players that I'm just trying to think of anyone that was a father son both played for the Steelers. Calvin Beecham played for both. I can't even think of a father son combo for the Steelers.
Played for both, yes.
Yeah,
but he's not the answer.
Yeah.
Someone in the live chat said Miles Jack. I don't even know if Miles Jack's father played in the NFL, but he played.
Miles Jack's still in his 20s, I think.
I don't know.
Mhm.
He's also
No, what I'm
retired.
saying. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
If Miles Jack, had a father that played in the NFL, yeah.
His dad, not
Um,
Miles Jack's son, is in the league, obviously.
Yeah. Joe Schobert wasn't the son of somebody, was he?
I'm going to give you a very bad hint. It's not going to help, but there's royalty involved here.
No clue.
It's king, queen, or prince.
Well, it's not in the name, but Jeff
Oh.
used to call one of these players king.
Why don't you just tell us who it is?
More like the Pokemon king.
Oh.
Marsh.
Curtis and Cassius Marsh played for both
my
the
gosh.
Steelers and the Jaguars.
I didn't even know Cassius Marsh's dad played in the NFL.
Curtis
Let alone
Marsh
with
was
the
a
Steelers.
receiver for the Steelers.
Yeah.
I love this. I love that.
That's a
trivia.
good one. You could have given me a long time.
There's no way in hell I would have ever gotten that. I would have been here for another 2 hours. Like, can you just tell me the answer? Because I don't know.
But that's a good
trivia.
one.
Good one. All right, Dave, you're up. Go ahead.
All right. I don't know what inspired me to do this. Well, I do know what did. It was one particular stat of, Kenny Pickett having his, game-winning drive, fourth quarter comeback, all that good stuff. And I thought to myself, Kenny Pickett, he's now started 18 games in the NFL. And of course, although I don't feel like it's always fair to compare him, who's Kenny Pickett always going to get compared to? He's going to get compared to Ben Roethlisberger. Yeah. So we're going to play a little quick game here. It's called 7 or 8. And I want you to tell me through the first 18 regular season starts of both players who had more or less, depending on how I ask the question. Who's the answer? Is it 7 or 8? So I'll start off with an easy one. Okay. Through 18, their first 18 regular season games, who had more wins? 7 or 8?
7.
And Brian's muted, so I assume he's going to say that.
I'm going to go ahead and say 7 as well.
Yes, because Ben Roethlisberger had won 17 out of his first 18, where Kenny Pickett had only won 11. If we had more time, I was going to play a Price is Right game with the next one, but I won't. Passing yards through 18 games. Who had more passing yards? 7 or 8?
8.
7.
Brian goes 7. Jeff goes 8. The winner here would be one Jefferson Bartholomew Hartman. It would be one Kenneth Shane Pickett. Has more passing yards through his first 18 starts. Remember? Wow. Starts. Yeah. And what's interesting is they have the same digits, but they're in a different order. I was going to do, like a Price is Right game where you have the 4 digits. You got to figure out the price. Because Roethlisberger was 3,451, where Pickett is 3,541. That's the way it goes. So, who has more completions through 18 games?
8.
I'm going to go ahead and say 8 as well.
That is correct. It is 8. He does have more completions. How about 102 more completions?
He's
so a lot more. I know that. A lot more completions. Yep. Who has a higher completion percentage? 7 or 8?
7.
That is correct. 7 had 65.3 through his first 18 starts, where Kenny Pickett had 62.0. Touchdowns. Passing touchdowns.
7.
7.
Yeah, he had twice as many. 24-12.
Jeez.
This is through 18 games. Okay. Interceptions. Who had more?
8.
I'm going to say 7.
Push. It's the same. They both had 10.
Okay.
So yeah, I threw it in there just because I had to. Okay, it was fun. How about quarterback rating?
7.
Yeah, 7.
You're correct. 105.1 versus 79.8 wasn't even all that close. Who has been sacked? Let's go ahead and keep it with the big numbers. Who was sacked more? 7 or 8 through their first 18 regular season starts?
I'm going to say 7.
That's what I'm leaning. I'm leaning it's a 7 as well.
Ben Roethlisberger was sacked 37 times through his first 18 starts, but that's still less than Kenny Pickett's 43.
Wow.
Yep. And how about rushing yards? 7 or 8?
Let's say 7.
I'm going to go 8.
It's actually 8 by a good bit. Ben Roethlisberger had 176. Kenny Pickett has 234. How about rushing touchdowns?
8.
7.
Well, once again, you're kind of both right to push. Because it's in games that they started, and the 2 that Kenny Pickett had against the Jets did not count. He has 2. Roethlisberger has 2. If not, it'd have been 8.
Wow.
Okay.
Because these are only in their starts. I filtered out. It was just games they started. 2 more. I'm going to kind of do them together. Fourth quarter comebacks and game-winning drives.
8.
I'm going to go
Both.
8.
On both.
Are you going
It's
for
a
the push? Oh.
It's a push for both of them.
Wow.
Oh, so Jeff
So
got
through
that, right?
8, yeah. So through 18 games, 18 regular season starts, because I wasn't counting Ben Roethlisberger postseason. I didn't think that was fair. Because that's higher competition. Anyway, that's just the way they do the stats. They each had 5 fourth quarter comebacks and 6 game-winning drives. Now, Kenny Pickett did it in less wins. So Kenny Pickett has had a game-winning drive in more than half of his wins as a starter. And think, one of those wins as a starter, he wasn't even out there for it at the end because he got knocked out of that Baltimore game. No, wait. They lost that game.
They lost
What was the one
Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay. That was the one that they won that he wasn't even out there for. So that is one thing that, and of course, Ben Roethlisberger got even better with that as his career went on, and he was good to start. Kenny Pickett is starting off on the right foot. I'm not saying Kenny Pickett's going to be a Ben Roethlisberger. It was just a nice little fun activity to do.
It's crazy, the similarities. It's really good to point that out. Really good to point that out. All right, let's do some final thoughts here. Brian, go ahead.
All right, I have 2 final thoughts. One, I'm thinking of having a new contest because I found something, and I haven't talked to the fellas about this, but even though it's not a super chat, I've got to bring up one of the funniest things I've read. I actually laughed out loud here, and I don't like the LOL, but when Brian Brown writes, Trevor Lawrence looks like Shaggy and Peppermint Patty had a baby.
He said that before.
So
I don't know if he said that Tuesday or what. It was another time I saw him say that. It was hilarious.
So I'm actually going. That one wins for the day. So try to be clever next week on the show, and if it's really good, I'll bring it up at the end. Now, true final thoughts. Here's the deal. I kind of spouted off a little bit tonight. Look, I want you to call me out. I have no problem. Anybody calls me out for anything because that's it. I really don't have that ego. I don't care if anybody doesn't think I'm a Steeler fan, but I am going to stick up for one more thing. When I go ahead and pick against the Pittsburgh Steelers on this show, it's because it doesn't mean anything. I have never put down money. I have never bet against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I never will. I had a friend do it the other day, and he lost because he thought the Steelers were going to lose. I'm never going to do it because I can't have that feeling that, oh, hey, I won money, but the Steelers lost. Because when I'm done with the game, now I don't kick the dog. I don't yell and be mad at my children, but I'm kind of depressed a little bit. Not enough where you have to see if I'm hanging from the shower rod or anything, but all you have to, I know it isn't the same as when Jeff Hartman comes on Steel Curtain Network and says, it's a Victory Monday. And by the way, you can get those shirts now. They're very clever. But
you got
Victory Mondays,
I'm getting it.
Victory Mondays feel so good. So do Victory Sunday nights. I know it more than anything. So when we go on that show after the Steelers lose, it is torture to be on that show. I mean, we do it because we deep down love the Steelers. Sometimes it's therapy. But when they win, no matter how bad they are in the win, man, it feels so good. So yes, I will never bet against this team. You can question, I'm sure it's joking by questioning my loyalty to this team, but I got to tell you, if you do cut me open, it's red, but I'll tell you it's black and gold.
All right. And by the way, if you're watching live, you can see senstore.itemorder.com is where you can get all of our shirts, like the shirt that Dave is wearing with the SCN logo, as well as Ride or Die Crew t-shirts. You can get the Victory Monday shirts, brand new high wattage shirt. So check those out at scnstore.itemorder.com. All right, Dave, your final thoughts. Go ahead.
Yeah, my final thoughts are, first, I will say that I can't say that I've never not picked against the Steelers because it wasn't really, I wouldn't call it a bet, but I have picked against the Steelers in Survivor League before in the past, simply because I'm like, I'm the one who has the prize that it's given away, so I'm not going to win anyway. And so I'll pick the team that the Steelers playing against, just to do it. But I'm the same way. I don't bet against Steelers because I'll tell you, I'll probably put a couple bucks down on them this weekend when they play at 1:00 on Sunday afternoon when God intended NFL football to be played. I will tell you all this. Jeff knows this. I'm sorry if I've been salty lately. I'm dealing with some kind of miserable back problems. I've been really grumpy. I even called someone an idiot on Tuesday night. I'm really sorry, Mark. I shouldn't have said that. That was just not right. But sorry if I'm extra grumpy and salty. But you know what? If I'm still struggling with the back problems, I really hope the Steelers can pull off this victory for our post-game show, or else I might be almost unbearable. You have to, Jeff and Brian might have to mute me and everything. I really think that the Steelers are starting to do things. It just feels different right now. I don't know why it feels different. Maybe it's because it was after the bye, the way the Steelers came on in the second half of that game. I just really want to see it throughout the whole game. And this is a big one. This is one of those games that you put down, like, if they can win that one, watch out. There was some last year that I did. Unfortunately, they didn't. It was the first time they played the Ravens. I thought, man, if the Steelers could even win that game, look out. They're going to make it in the postseason and make some noise. And they came up just short. They've put themselves in a much better position to not have to win all of these really tough games. This is one that if they come up just short, they can still really come through this year. I'm thinking the Steelers have a chance to score 30 points this game. They score 30 points, they're going to win. I just don't know if they will. So those are my final thoughts, that even though I try to be rational and say, hey, I try to lower my expectations. It's really tough taking on a team when they're coming off their mini bye, when they have that extra time. But the Steelers are then going to be going into 2 more games where, hey, they're on a short week, but they get to be at home. That'll be an advantage over their competition. Then they'll be coming off their mini bye the next week at home. That's going to be an advantage, So they'll be on the right end of this coming up soon. And just because they're on the wrong end of it now, and it's going to make it for a little bit of a tougher game, that's all right. I'm still going to be there waving my enormous, terrible towel and ready to rock here on Sunday.
When are you going to a game this year?
I was actually supposed to go to this one. And then someone who my brother-in-law was selling tickets to asked if I could switch, and they wanted to go to this one instead. That's how I ended up with the Ravens tickets. Blah. And that's when I decided not to go, which I'm really glad that I did, because my back wouldn't have allowed me to go, because that's actually when I heard it. Before the Ravens game. Yeah, I've been dealing with it that long, but I did go get checked out and everything, and I'm working to get it better now since Jeff hurt my back going to the driving range.
Just kidding. I fixed your slice. I didn't hurt your back.
I know you did fix my slice. But I was told not to golf anymore until next spring.
Gosh.
Yeah, I know. Just like he doesn't know how he would live. So actually right now I am scheduled to go to the Cardinals game, but my brother-in-law actually ended up with tickets in back-to-back games. He has the Thursday night game and then the Packers game. And so I'll tell him after he goes to the Thursday night game, if he wants to swap with me, I would swap those with him. So I'll be either at the Packers game or the Cardinals game this year. And I'm looking forward to getting back in the stadium. The biggest thing is I don't like missing the post-game show. I love talking about the game afterwards with you and Brian. So, but
it's not all that it's cracked. It's not that it's all cracked up to be.
Yeah.
The post-game show. All right, good.
It's funny. Someone did ask me if I've tried an inversion board. I'm like, I think those things have weight limits that I'm severely over, that I don't think I could pull that off.
Is that like a what is the
isn't the thing where you're like upside down?
Yeah. I'm trying to think there was a name of it. Man, I forget it. Anyways, I used to see commercials for them all the time.
Yeah.
All right, good stuff. We will be back on Sunday after the 1:00 kickoff that we just mentioned for the post-game show. Make sure you check us out there. Also, Make sure you check out all of our content, not just that you see on Facebook and YouTube and occasionally on Twitter, by finding us wherever you get your podcast by searching Steelers or Steel Curtain Network. You'll get Dave's Stat Geek, Brian's Bad Language, my Let's Ride podcast, which I go behind enemy lines tomorrow on Friday morning. Check us out there. You won't regret it. In the meantime, Dave, why don't you send us out?
Hey.
We'll see you next week for another Steelers preview.
Steel Curtain Network. Get it.
Everybody else gets a little tight.